Good afternoon. Welcome to Business as Usual. This is Audrey Russo. I'm thrilled to be here on the hump day of whatever week it is since the onset of COVID. I've actually lost track. Must be like the 16th week. Anyway, I'm thrilled to be here, and I'm joined by Jonathan Kirsting. He is Vice President of all things media at the Tech Council and also hosts a radio show called Tech Vibe Radio. So a few things just about today's call. It would not be possible without the support that we get from our partners. And our partners are Huntington Bank, Sheets, and Deloitte. And you're probably wondering, Sheets, the Tech Council, well, there's lots of opportunities there. They actually have built an innovation center in Pittsburgh and are working on the most amazing things that we will be very surprised about over the next couple of years. And they're very passionate about bringing innovation into their industry. And Deloitte is a big force in the information technology world, and they have a huge presence. They represent over 85% of all the US Fortune 500 companies in terms of the work they do. And from an innovation perspective, they've been at the forefront of many revolutions in business for 175 years. So I want to thank everyone for being a sponsor for us today and for believing in the work that we're doing. We started this, it seemed like a year ago, but we're still strong and moving forward. So I'm very, very thrilled to have our guest today. So I've muted all of you. Well, actually, I didn't do it, but one of the smart people on my team did it. And they muted your microphones just to make sure that we don't get any of the noise in the background. And with that said, we want this to be interactive. So we want you to be able to have an opportunity to ask our guest some questions and have some chat. So really thrilled for everyone to be here. But this is not an opportunity to sell. We're not here to sell. We're only here to have a conversation with David Morehouse. So David, I am thrilled to have you here. We're gonna set this up, but I just want everyone to know, if you don't know anything about David, there's just like a couple of points that I wanna rattle off, and there's so much to his career. First of all, he comes from Beachview, and he is a Pittsburgh guy. He actually started out by working in, I believe he was a Boilermaker. Is that right, David? You were a Boilermaker, and then got injured and went on to CCAC and sort of reinvented himself a few times, had a chance to work in a couple of prominent Democratic campaigns and with people who are pretty prominent who have been our President Clinton as well as John Kerry. He has went back to school, got his master's in public policy, near and dear to my heart, from the Kennedy School. He found his way into the hearts of the Penguins, and I think Mario Lemieux said, we're not going to let this guy go. And here we are. I've known David for 12 years. I can't believe it, David. They have been incredible partners with the Tech Council. Honestly, this is no BS. Right from the onset of the time that I've joined the Tech Council, we have done a lot of really great things, a lot of experiments, and there's nothing better than having a partner that you can do experiments with and that that you're in this journey together. And we've taken some big chances together, and I just want to thank you for your leadership, not just for the Pens, but just for this community. You've been awesome. So I know I abbreviated, your history there, but I just want to welcome you, and I think it was really important for everyone to know that your roots in Pittsburgh as well as your national roots, and that your journey into the Penguins is a very unusual one and fascinating one. So thank you. I hope I captured that for you.
No, thank you.
And so here we are. So you're here, and you've been busy. It's been COVID. The hockey has changed. Life has changed, but no surprise to me. The Penguins have been resilient. And let's just sort of talk about. Let's just jump in and talk about the collective bargaining agreement. Let's talk about what you've been busy with over the last, I don't know. How long has it been, David? 10?
It's been since March 12th.
Okay.
So,
specifically.
I adjusted my screen so you could see the Stanley Cups behind me.
There you go.
Yeah, there you
nice.
go.
That's what we want to
There
see.
you go. Thank you.
It's the only time I bring them out. So I want to make sure that I remind myself why we're here, because it's such a crazy time.
Yes.
So yeah, March 12th, we were scheduled to play the Columbus Blue Jackets, and we learned of COVID a few weeks prior to that, and that's when our season was canceled, postponed.
Mm-hmm.
And from that point on, we've been doing what everyone else has been doing. We've been trying to stop the bleeding, trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy in a very abnormal environment. Work from home, learn how to use Zoom, learn how to put props behind you when you need them. And we've been, working towards making sure we're strong coming back. So we had to make some furloughs. The people that we kept, we challenged them to, come out of this shutdown period stronger than we went into it. And I think they've risen to the challenge. We have really good staff here. A lot of people that make the Penguins look good. And we started our training camp on Monday, which went extremely well. We had 6 weeks prior to that, we were given the okay when we went to yellow and the NHL protocols. We were allowed to have 6 players at a time on the ice and working out. So we created color-coded pods. So these 6 players would come into a separate door in our UPMC Lemieux practice facility. They would go to a separate locker room. They would work out just amongst themselves with one trainer. They'd work out on the ice with a trainer, and they'd never cross paths. So we isolated pods of 6. So in case someone did become positive, we would just have to isolate 6 at a time. So we think that's worked out very well. And we're looking forward to our first game, which is, I think I have it here. It's against Philly. The 28th at 4:00. And our first playoff game's August 1st against Montreal at 8 p.m. So the league decided to finish the playoffs, expand it a bit from 16 teams to 24, have a play-in round, which is our Montreal round. Montreal didn't make the playoffs in the beginning as a 16 seed tournament, but they did when we expanded to 24, and then try to get the playoffs in without people, place them in 2 locations where they're in a bubble, and they have no interaction with other people. And it just so happens they're in Canada, where they actually have to use technology to track them, and they're not allowed in any of the restaurants outside of the bubble. And there is a technology. One of our colleagues, CEO of one of the companies that we work with, said that in China, there's an app that your home screen is green or red, and it's based on whether you've had contact with anyone that is tested positive. And there's restaurants that you would not be able to come in unless you had a green screen. Now, in the United States, it's a little, people are going to be a little bit more skeptical of that kind of technology, but we're using it in Canada. 2 cities they selected were Toronto and Edmonton. So we're playing our first round and our exhibition game in Toronto. Our first and second round games would be in Toronto. And then if we made the conference finals, we'd go to Edmonton for conference finals and Stanley Cup finals.
Wow. So that's exciting. A lot packed in a short period of time. But
yes.
my hat's off to you to making it work. So people are saying that this whole CBA, can we go into talk about the CBA?
Yeah.
And bargaining unit, and talk about like this negotiation was like no other. So clearly there were no media reports of negotiating issues at all through the process, not that I could see. How did the process go, and why was it so smooth?
I think, immediately everyone recognized, team management, ownership, league management, players, and the Players Association, the PA, that we were treading in unprecedented waters, and it's not the time to do a typical bargain session. So we knew that we needed, as we come out of this pandemic and everything else that's come along since, we needed to show stability, and we needed to come out of this financially stable, both the teams themselves and the players. And the way our current CBA is structured, our players next season would have had to, give over half of their pay back to the owners. I mean, they get 50% of hockey-related revenue, so that means they also get 50% of the risk. So the union recognized that, the players did, and Commissioner Bettman and Bill Daley, who did the negotiating, from the beginning just tried to figure out, let's not just talk about a return to play. Let's see if we can extend the CBA, create some stability, which they did for 6 years, create economic certainty, knowing the players knowing how much they have to put into the escrow for the revenue share, because that was always unknown, and it was based on it took 2 years to get the final numbers on what they owed, and so we streamlined a lot of that. We fixed a lot of things that were broken in the original CBA, and I think what motivated them was just this is not the time to have a hostile negotiation. This is the time to work together to find out how we can do what I said our staff people are doing. Take a bad situation and try to make yourself better.
Right. Yeah, it's remarkable. So what do you think? You think the team's prepared to win?
The team from here can win?
Yeah.
I like this team. I never predict things.
Right.
I'm superstitious too, but I really like this team. I liked it all year. I think we have the right combination of players. We've had during a hockey season, when you look at the years we've won, we've always had some kind of adversity that we've had to overcome during the season. We had that earlier in the season with a lot of injuries, had a lot of young players get experience they wouldn't have otherwise had. And then, I had the opportunity to go back and watch all of our Stanley Cup playoff games, which I didn't. I've never watched before. I was there. So I never got to watch the coverage. I didn't realize that your muscle memory, you still get sick to your stomach at the end of Game 7 in 2009 when you see the puck laying there and Fleury on the wrong side of the crease. Even though my conscious brain knows what's going to happen, I was back in my subconscious feeling it. And watching those games, you realize every one of the cups we won going back to the 90s, if not for one or two things,
Right.
We lose. I mean, it's not just how well you play.
Right.
It's things going your way, staying healthy, getting the right play at the right time, having good goaltending. So there's a lot of things that go into it. It's not just the best team, but I think this group of players will benefit from the fact that we've had this time off, that they've had 6 weeks to train at a much higher pace in smaller groups, because our veterans, if you look at an 82-game schedule for a hockey player, imagine football playing 5 days a week. I mean, that's the kind of contact they're having on a day-to-day basis, and so we track all that, and we use technology to track it, and we think our players are well rested, they're healthy, and I can't wait to see the stars without having the weight of the regular season attached to them as we go into the playoffs.
Well, we think that it's so critical for you guys to restart for the region. just because of everything going on with COVID, everything that's happened in Black Lives Matter, everything that has happened just in our, around the United States. But we rally around our sports, and we look at you and your team as part of the solution to our mood, our sentiment. And you've got to feel some of that pressure, David, and excitement.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up here, and we did research when we were looking at Las Vegas and Kansas City before we signed the arena deal to stay here. And so when you look at the demographics of Pittsburgh, it's not a 3 professional sport team city. 300,000 people in the city proper,
right?
1.5 million, 1.2, 1.5 in a county. Right. 2.5, whatever numbers are in a region. Right. We don't have the numbers to support 3 professional sports teams, but having grown up here, I had a unique understanding that went beyond simple demographics, that the affinity for sports here is deeper. And the only other city you can compare it to would be Boston. And it's funny, I was walking in, I took my son, who was born in Boston. He only lived there 18 months, but he's a Red Sox fan. He's actually a Tom Brady fan. He's not allowed to be a Bruin fan, but I took him to the Sox series game last year, and we're standing in a line, and someone in front of us was having a conversation. They said, the only city close to Boston is Pittsburgh as far as championship teams and the type of players they've had come through. And so you're right. We are a big part of the community, and we're a bigger part because it's such a small, tight-knit community. So we understand we stand on the platform of sports, and we have a responsibility because of that platform to do things for the community and to activate in times of crisis. We did a lot of that during the Tree of Life tragedy. We've done it at different times. And we continue to do it. And through our foundation, we give away between $5 and $7 million a year to local charities and local charitable causes in the region. So it's in our mission statement. Our mission statement is to win the Stanley Cup, give back to the community, and grow the game of hockey. I mean, it's paraphrasing, but that's it. And after every season, we go through it. And 2 seasons in a row, I was able to check every box. And there's a poster of it. If, Audrey, you've been in the office. We've been hanging outside the conference room. It's on everyone's desk. If I go by someone's desk and they don't have it on their desk, they're told about it. And we live by it. And so we take that responsibility seriously. And we try to do what we can to use the platform as best we can to make a difference.
Well, you even, not just the Lemieux Foundation, but also the Penguins Foundation has done a lot for many years for working on the digital divide and getting technology into the tools of young children, getting into their hands. So this isn't something new and recent. So my hat's off to you to continue to do that work. So how have you been keeping your fans engaged, though, like with the lack of games?
Through social media mostly. So we have a really good social media team here. We lead the league by far in every social media category.
Yes, you do.
And that's not per capita. We have higher numbers than New York. We have higher numbers than Toronto. We actually had a point middle of this season where we had more Twitter followers in Canada than every city in Canada except for Montreal and Toronto than their home teams. So we have a very robust group led by Andy Perlman, who was just promoted to vice president.
Oh, nice.
And the month of March this year, when half the month we didn't play, right, we had more social media interactions than we did the prior March when we were playing. So we're pretty creative. We try to have different types of content go out on different platforms. We've had our coaches and players volunteer to call our season ticket holders, and they've made phone calls to our season ticket holders in the beginning, just asking how they were. We didn't call to say, do you want to renew? They just want to make sure you're okay. If there's anything you need. A lot of our season ticket holders talk about their ticket reps as if they're part of the family. I'll get stopped on the street and they'll say, how's George doing? And I'll say, George who? And they'll say, George, my ticket guy. And we have 15,000 season ticket seats, 7,000 accounts. I mean, they feel like they know them on a personal basis. So I think we just have a really good group of people, both on the social media side and on the customer service ticketing side, that maintain that relationship. And we've had, for a league that doesn't have a season yet for next season and doesn't have a schedule, our numbers are good with season ticket holders. Our numbers are good with our sponsors. We're a relationship-driven business. That's how we approach all of our business entities and our interactions. And we've maintained those relationships, and I think people have been supportive of us during these times.
That's great. That says a lot, because I was going to ask you a little bit about how the fans have responded to this. So it seems like it's just been consistently positive and you're feeling optimistic for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I'm feeling optimistic. We were prepared because we were in the middle of, we're just coming out of a lot of research on millennials and Zs and their behavior in consuming sports. And anyone that's done research on millennials and Zs knows that, the idea of them buying a ticket now for March is not something that is front of mind. So we were already looking at strategies. We're built to sell to baby boomers and Generation X. And so we had Russell Reynolds came in and did an analysis. We're restructuring. We've done a lot of research. So we were in the middle of that when the pandemic hit. So now when we come back, we're going to be shifting resources and we're going to be selling tickets in a different way. We're going to be, you mentioned Sheets and their technology. We've already talked to them. I know they're building that center. We're changing the way concessions operate. We have a plan that for next year to have less belly up to the concession stand experiences and more airport-like walk through, grab and go. We're developing an app that with Carnegie Mellon right now that if you're part of a Penguins club, we haven't named it yet, and you pay a nominal fee, you'll get news before the news media on certain things. You'll get content that other people don't get. But most importantly, on a Saturday, you're not a season ticket holder, but you're part of this club. You pick up your phone, you see there's tickets available. You'll be able to view the seats, what the seat view is. You have an account with us. We have all your information. You'll see the price. You press buy. You buy your 2 tickets. Screen pops up, public transportation, Uber, Lyft, or Drive. You press Drive. It tells you the optimum time to leave based on where you're living, which parking lot to park in. So you have best egress and ingress. And that's all paid for. All you do when you go into parking is you swipe your screen. You walk across the street to the arena. You've hit either in your profile or when you bought your tickets that you want a hot dog and a Coke before you sit down. So as soon as you come into the building, our beacons pick you up, or when we're scanning you, our scanners pick you up. The order goes into section 101's concession stand, and there's a pickup place where you grab your hot dog and Coke and you sit down. You have not had to touch one single person. So that's the kind of technology that we thought we needed to develop based on the research from Gen Xers and millennials.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gen Zs and millennials. So we're working on that now as we speak. So that's going to play right into, post-COVID. And there's some other structural design things. We're going to need touchless sinks, touchless doors.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, working with companies like Sheets, it's one of our partners. Can we develop a new way how our concessions or can we have like mini Sheet stores where people walk in and the warm foods to the left and room temperature and colds to the right, and they grab, and we've loaded tickets where it's free in that section if you have your ticket in that section, or they buy they have a credit to buy things like that. It's cashless. We'll probably go cashless at some point.
Nice. Well, when I first met you and joined the Tech Council and some of the people who were on our team back then, including Jonathan, who's on this call, you allowed us to partner with you so that you were essentially a Petri dish. We were doing experiments left and right that many people didn't know. And there were many companies that were formed out of those relationships. There were many companies who were formed and no longer exist. There were some who were formed and acquired, and many who had pivoted. But you allowed us to experiment and let the arena and the Penguins and even your foundation be this source of experimentation. So it's no surprise for those of you that don't know the inner workings of the Penguins and just know them from the front end on the hockey, it's no surprise the kind of examples that you're talking about right now. We hope that once we get a little bit more stable, whether it's post-COVID, virtual or not, that we continue to work with you on making sure that those connections and opportunities are there. You've been a great platform for us.
Well, because of the history, I think it gives us a head start, if you will. We're the perfect beta test for a lot of things, and we've beta tested cameras on helmets.
I know.
360 cameras. YinScam was developed.
YinScam, that's what we did.
YinScam is a company that was developed for the Penguins. That's when someone else was the CEO, and I was trying to get him to get some of the IP.
I know.
He didn't want it, and I have to see it every day. But we developed just recently with Covestro. Jerry McCleary, the former CEO, was at a hockey game in Suite 66, and we walked out and he saw the back of the boards, and I said, Jerry, you're a material scientist. You can't tell me that material science has an advanced past fiberglass on steel. We're investing a lot of money in these players. There's a lot of kids that play hockey, and they're running into these brick walls. And he said, yeah, we should do something. So we partnered, and we got together with Pitt and Carnegie Mellon and Covestro. Actually, it was just Carnegie Mellon and Covestro on this project. We finalized the deal here that we were going to develop. We were going to do a make-a-thon at Carnegie Mellon and have students develop ideas for new boards that were more absorbent. And so the day that we cut the deal, Rich Hickson, who works for us and runs UPMC Lemieux and Cranberry, called me from there and said, your son Jackson, I think he was 14 at the time, he caught an edge at practice, went head first into boards, knocked himself out. He was fine. I mean, he had a concussion, but it was the day we did the deal. I felt like I cursed him, but it was a good justification for it. And we developed that summer. Covestro hired 2 of the CMU students to work with their engineers, and they developed a new hockey board with Athletica, a company in Canada that manufactures them. And we have them installed in our Cranberry facility in half the rink in one of our rinks, and we're going to have the full rink installed. We did a simulation with Jake Gensel's injury from earlier in the season. Those of you that remember, he went head first into the boards full speed, turned his head at the last minute, and broke his shoulder. And he did it in such a way that our sports orthopedics couldn't operate on him. He had to get a trauma specialist. So then we took that video. They were able to slow it down pixel by pixel, and we were able to measure the force he hit with each part of his body. And then we superimposed it on current boards where he hit a cross beam. So he hit what literally was a steel beam. And then we showed the new boards how it would have absorbed the impact, and it was a 25% reduction in impact. So when you talk about us looking at those things, those are the kinds of things we're looking at. We're looking at how to redesign hockey boards. We're looking at equipment, how to redesign equipment. We're looking at how we broadcast games. How can we change the broadcast experience? We're pushing the league on technology also. But we're I mean, I think that's partly because of our relationship. I remember we had all the tech companies in the suites.
Yeah, we've done it a few times.
Yeah, we should do that again.
We do that again. We did a showcase. We had a private group. We actually met with some of your season ticket holders. We've done a lot of different things in terms of mashing it up. So I think there's a couple of things, because we're running past our time, but there's some good conversation. First of all, I just want to give a shout out that Jim Rutherford was elected to the Hockey Hall of Fame this season. So he is your general manager. That's a big deal. Congratulations to him and to you. So his leadership has to be, insurmountable.
Well, he's a Hall of Famer. Someone asked me, was that the best decision you ever made? I said, as a professional, probably. He said, well, how did you make the decision? I said, it's kind of like asking the scouts how they decided Sidney Crosby was going to be the first pick. I mean, he was a Hall of Famer before he came here. I mean, he was an impressive individual who took that Carolina team to two Stanley Cup finals. They won one. They lost us in a conference final with limited resources. He's seen everything. He's been extremely helpful to me. He's been a good friend, and he's a big reason we've had the success we've had since we hired him.
Yeah, which is fabulous. So we're going to wrap up with one last question. What's your advice to the graduates of 2020? You've had a very, interesting career. Would you have thought 30 years ago that this is what you would be doing right now? I would bet probably not. So what's your advice?
Well, every job I had, along my path, I thought was as good as it got. And then as I was there a little while, I said, I could do that. I could do my boss's job, and I take my boss's job. So, but every single job, I mean, my life's path was going to be a Boilermaker. So everything from that point on was gravy, right? So, but the one thing I used to talk to a leadership class at Pitt every semester actually, but I think the most important thing is I would ask the class, what do you want to do when you graduate? And inevitably I'd get, I want to do something meaningful. I want to do something that, is, something I can be passionate about. And I would answer that with, you may have to pay the rent. Like if you get that upon graduation, that's great. And it's a great aspiration for a lifetime. But if you get it at graduation, it's like hitting a lottery. I mean, you may have to work for someone you don't like. You may have to work with someone that you don't like. And those are good experiences. Mm-hmm. Those are experiences that will get you to the next level. Mm-hmm. So, my advice is, like, when you graduate, if you can get that job on graduation, great. But if you can't, and you have to pay the rent, and you have to work in a field that you don't think is the path that you chose, don't worry about it. Take something from it. When I was in graduate school, I remember I took a leadership class, I wrote a bad boss paper. That was the best thing I ever did. I mean, I learned more from the bad bosses than I did from the good ones. So keep that in mind as you embark on your careers. That and I think it's lost a lot on millennials and Zs is you know, you may not know what you're going to do for the next 5 years. You may not know what you're going to do for a lifetime. I mean, so take advantage of whatever it is you do, and while you're doing it, do the best job you can. Like I was the best copier in the Clinton campaign in '92 they ever had. I mean, and a presidential campaign, you don't have an HR department that's, you know, recommending people. You look behind you and you see someone doing a good job. All of a sudden, they're a deputy press secretary. I mean, so that's how I was able. It's a meritocracy, so that's how I was able to move up so quickly. It's a low bar in politics and sports. That's the secret to my success.
All right. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for being with us and for the leadership that you have and for being back in Pittsburgh for so long and just being, you know, a good citizen on so many different fronts and for all that you've done. We are looking forward to these games. We're looking forward to some more tech collaborations, and let's just give it one more shot of all those Stanley Cups. And my hat's off to you, David. Stay safe. And I'm assuming all the players are staying safe, just as you mentioned earlier. And thank you for giving us an update on the negotiations and everything going smoothly. So a toast to the Penguins. I raise my bottle to a great season ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your time, and thanks for everyone who took time to Zoom in today. We're really excited about being back on the ice, and we're ready to go. Team's ready. We're ready. I think I think we can have a long run in this playoff.
I think so too. Thank you. Thanks, David.
Thanks.
See everyone. We're back here tomorrow at the same time.
Bye.